Hey guys, so with Christmas coming up and a lot of holiday parties, people have been saying they want to be elves. Also, with the premiere of The Desolation of Smog just the other night, a lot of people were being elves for that. And one of the big issues with being an elf is the ears. Our human ears are not usually the shape of elf ears. If you're lucky, then you do have elf ears, and that's great. But for some of us, we don't. For most of us, we don't. So today I'm going to teach you how to make your own elf ears out of clay and liquid latex and a lot of patience. So yeah, here you go. First things first, you're going to need a few things. I recommend using the Crayola air dry clay, the stuff in the tub, but not the stuff they sell in the weird little packages, because that's more like Play-Doh. Or you can also use regular clay that you put in a kiln. Both work just as well to me. Modeling clay does not work for this at all. You also need some liquid latex. I'm using the Bendai brand because, well, I think it's the best. And make sure you have a paintbrush that you don't like. Do not use your good makeup brushes. Do not use your good paint brushes. Go to the dollar store and buy a pack of crappy brushes because you're never going to be able to use this again. Alright, so for what I'm about to teach you, you can actually apply it to anything. You can make cuts, you can make noses, you can make whatever you want, as long as you have the clay. And with the air dry clay, my favorite thing is if I want to keep the mold, I can. It'll dry and I can use it again and again, unless it breaks, in which case I can't. But if you don't want to and you're making something small, if you finish it fast enough, the latex will dry faster than the clay does, as long as you do it layer by layer. If you do it all at once, then it's going to take a long time to dry and you're probably going to lose. First things you need to do is you need to make your ears. I have actually already made my ears before. This is what the clay looks like when it's hardened. They're in the shape of the ears. I just kind of made simple ones that they'll just sit on the top of the ear. They're not going to cover the entire ear. This is, for me, I feel like this is the best route. It just adds a point to the tip of your own natural ear, but you can make them however you want. I've also made them like this before, which that's what it looks like when it has the latex on it. These ones are currently drying. But you need to kind of guesstimate how big your ear is. You can measure if you want, but for me, I kind of just went with what felt natural to my own ear shape, and I went with it. Just so you know, if you make stuff that curves over into like a point, it's going to be harder to put the latex on it, because when you pull it off, it's not going to be a fun time. So, yeah. When you've got your clay mold and you're ready to put the latex on it, the best thing to do is pour the latex into a cap or into a disposable bowl that you don't really care about. You're just going to use the brush. I'm using one that already has latex on it, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for me. And you kind of just pat it onto the mold. It won't hurt the table. You can actually just peel it off of the table. You can put it on a plastic plate. That works as well. That's what I usually use if I'm making cuts or something and I need to have thin edges. I will put it on a plate, and I will extend the latex onto the plate as well. You could do this one of two ways. One way is to do it layer by layer. So you put one thin layer on, and then you let that sit. And then once that one's dry, you start putting on the next one. What I'm going to do today is I'm just going to do it all at once, because I already have the mold dried and everything, so I don't need to worry about time. If you wanted to reuse the clay and crumple it back up, you would want to do the layer by layer, because it would take less time. Depending on the project, if it's something small, the clay might dry regardless, so I cannot guarantee that you'll be able to reuse the clay. If you're using regular modeling clay, it does, not modeling clay, regular clay that you would use to make in a kiln and stuff like that, you can actually, if it dries too much for you, to change using your hands after you're done with the mold, you can just drip it in water and it should be fine. That's what I've heard. I've never used it myself. But anyway, so I'm just going to put on a big thick layer, and then you just let it sit overnight. That's what I found to be the best thing if I want to keep the mold. I mean, there's no point in sitting here watching it for hours waiting for it to dry when I can just do this and let it sit overnight and go to sleep. And then wake up in the morning and just hope the cats don't knock it over. You have to get all the way around, trying to make it as even as possible. If there's any air bubbles, you can go ahead and pop them. Liquid latex is so much fun. Yeah. And like I said before, this can be applied to anything. It could be, you can make cuts, you can make noses. I've made elf noses before. But I figured elf would be a good topic since Christmas is coming up, and since The Desolation of Smog just came out. I guess I should have done this before. I actually wore my elf ears to the premiere. Yeah, I'm a cool person. This is a lot easier with 2 hands, by the way. just so you know. But you really don't need that much liquid latex. The more that you have on it, the longer it's going to take it to dry. Alright, so there you go. That's a pretty decent layer. I might have to go back over later and add more to it, but as of right now, it seems like it's going to be pretty good. So you just let it sit overnight, and you let it dry, and then, yeah. And you can do 2 ears, but for right now, I guess I'm only doing the 1. Something I should have mentioned before is that the thinner that you apply the latex and you leave it like that, the thinner the ears are going to be. Thin is good near edges, but at the same time, it's not good for the entire thing, because the thinner it is, the less sturdy it's going to be, and the more likely it is to rip when peeling it off. So keep that in mind. I know for a lot of people time is an issue and they just want it to be done super fast, but if you want them to last, you need to make sure to not make them super thin. That's just one thing that usually gets me, is I usually make them too thin and they rip, and that's never a good time. These are ears that I've actually made previously. You can tell that they are already cut and everything up and ready to go. Once you have the ear shape that you want and you peel it off, you need to make sure that you cut it so it fits your ear. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have a hard time hiding the edges. When you do want to peel off the initial ear, before you do the cutting and all stuff like that, you're going to need some powder. You can use baby powder, you can use anything you want. I actually have some still on the table. And you're going to use a brush like these, or you can use a powder brush, whatever you want. I still like to use my old crappy brushes rather than my expensive ones that I have, just because in case the latex isn't dry all the way, it can get stuck on the brush. As you can see, there is some residue of latex, and that's no bueno. So you take the powder and you're going to put powder all over. Okay, it's not going to fall over when you do it, because you'll be using 2 hands and not holding a camera. But you take the powder and you have to put it all over the outside, and as you are peeling it off, don't lay it down. I mean, even though it's dry, you can. Technically, if you lay it in the powder, it should be fine. As you peel it off, you need to powder the inside as well, so it does not stick together. So it's kind of a slow process of peeling and powdering and doing all at once when you have 2 hands and not recording. That's a lot of powder. And when you do pull them off, hold on a second, they look like this, with some powder on it. And they fit perfectly on the ear, and they look perfectly fine. Like I said, you need to cut it so it fits your ear and it's easier for you to hide the edges. I made it rather thin. These ones were only 2 layers rather than the usual 3 that I do, because it was for the ear, and it just sits right on top of my ear, so it didn't really need a lot of support. And yeah, so that's you color it the color that you need it to be, and you have an ear. Yeah, how about that?